Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. We are the news division of United Network, and we are also part of CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And our mission is to bring you the real news each and every week. And we do that in lots of different ways. First of all, we have our awesome field messengers that are boots on the ground that tell us what's going on in their communities. We have more in-depth stories that the team and I work on for you guys each week. And we also have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency on what is really happening here on our planet in the ultimate battle of good versus evil. If you want more information about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. So this podcast is a week in review show. I go through all of the stories that we discuss, kind of give you a little snippet of each. I do encourage you guys to go back and watch the videos. So this is kind of to catch you up to speed if you missed some of the episodes, or if you want to share UNN with somebody else, because everything we do is supported through membership. And when we release our content, it first goes out exclusively to our members for the first week. And then after that, the videos get released on YouTube and Rumble. But we can't always control if those sites are going to play our videos, give us a strike, whatever. So the best thing to do is to watch it either on our app or through our website, through our membership. With anything you guys are listening to or watching online, it's always important to think critically about the information and ask yourself questions. Do a little bit of research on your end as well. And when you figure some stuff out, share it with other people you care about, because that's how we're all going to learn and grow. Okay, no big announcements today before we dive into the news, although we are in a new month, so happy May, everyone. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. So let's kick things off with our awesome field messengers, and we really believe that field messengers are the new news, okay? You guys are going to be changing the face of news simply by cutting out the middleman, by showing us what's going on in your community. You are now reporting the news. And it's a lot easier than a lot of people would probably have you believe, right? Because you don't need a big fancy camera crew. We all have these pretty incredible phones that capture audio and video pretty darn well. And that's really all you need. And when you capture those stories, you can send them to us. We've got a production team that can put them together for you, so you don't need any kind of editing experience. And then we put it up there on the news for everyone to see. All right, so let's talk about the field messenger reports we released this week. Kicking things off with Simone from England, and she tells us more about these allotment plots in her neighborhood, and they're available for communities to grow their own food. This is more and more important and will continue to become more and more important as supply chains. You know, we're dealing with a lot of stuff going on in Iran right now. We don't really know where all that is going, but we need to be able to take care of ourselves and people in our communities. And it starts with growing healthy food. So this is one way in England that some people do it. So she says you basically rent these small areas. I think she said it was 300 square yards. I'm sure those sizes can change, but you rent them out and then you grow things in there. And the whole community can do it, and they support one another. They grow different things so they can trade. This is all about becoming more sustainable, so we're not reliant on the system. So thank you, Simone, for your report. Desmond out of Ghana shows us a beautiful way of making clothing that is native to his area. They call it kente weaving. This is one of those videos you really got to watch because the clothing is so gorgeous. I can't tell you guys how many stories I've done about fast fashion and waste and, you know, trying to recycle all this stuff, but they're synthetic fibers. And I feel like this story is just a beautiful reminder of how we can go back to more traditional ways of doing things, right? We don't need really big factories. You should see the amazing clothes that they're creating for people in Ghana. It's bringing back color. Like, I feel like everything's gray now. We need these beautiful colors back. And, you know, he just shows us how it's done. there's literally a guy behind this kind of wooden device, and he has a process of weaving these clothes together, and they are gorgeous. So again, just a reminder, hey, we can do this. We don't need a big system behind us in order to create simple things like clothing. All right, Steve M. out of Canada. Oh, it's cold up there. Maybe not all the time, right, Steve? But they get a lot of snow. And so in this video, Steve shows us how the snowfall is collected. It's loaded up. It's even taken off site. It's part of his city's snow removal process. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with snow, this is kind of a cool video to watch, right? He even shows us how sometimes 2 trucks go out at once, and one is kind of gathering up the snow, and then it's kind of shooting it over to the other truck and into the bed of another truck, so, it doesn't go back out on the street. And then they take it and they, drop it off at this site, which I don't know if it's legal to go sledding in that site where all the snow is dumped. But that's the first thing I thought is like, oh, that would be a lot of fun, right? Who doesn't like to play in fresh snow and go sledding down incredible hills? So very interesting report. Claudia out of Georgia takes us to her area where a little bit of history is being unearthed, in a sense. So way back in the day, they used to have these public swimming pools in East Point, Georgia, and they were busy community spaces where people gathered together. But now those pools have since closed, and a lot of that history is forgotten. And she talks with someone who has done a little bit of digging up of the past, right? Looked more into the history and found that a lot of those pools were closed after segregation ended. Basically, the funding stopped. This was one way for them to get around segregation. Oh, we don't really want to merge people together, so we're just going to close down these community spots. And that's kind of sad. But the beauty of it is in the video now, even though some of that history is lost, she showed us video of people of all different kinds of colors of skin getting together and having a good time, just enjoying community in that same spot, right? So kind of sad that some history is lost, but also look how far we've come. All right, Karen out of Ireland talks about a Roku ring. So if you guys haven't heard of this before, I think it's beautiful. We have all heard of farmers markets. I know here in my town, there's several farmers markets that go on throughout the week, which is beautiful. But sometimes with those farmers markets, there can be a lot of red tape involved. And in Karen's situation, she was in a place that didn't have any farmers markets. And so what she started, and I love that she took initiative on this, is kind of a smaller way of creating a community market where people can still do some of the same things, right? They produce food, they can buy things, everything is homegrown, made by artisans. But instead of, having a whole day or multiple hours where all this takes place, where you may need to get permits and things like that, they just have once a week, they have a time, and people meet up in one place at the same time each week, and everything, all the exchanges and everything is done in 30 minutes. Boom, right? So if you happen to be in an area where that is an issue, you're having a hard time getting things up and running, start a Roku ring. Very simple, right? And you can connect with people online, send text messages, whatever, and figure it out. So I love that. Tony out of Italy reminds us of the beauty of flamingos. So I don't know if you guys have ever done a deep dive into flamingos. Sometimes you guys really inspire me with these field messenger reports because I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Let me do a little bit more research on this. And Tony went to a place, and I think she says there were some lagoons in Cabras, Italy. So Italy is where she lives. And she just tells us all about the flamingos there. Now, in her video, the flamingos seemed quite white, except when they started to fly. You could see like the pink and black under their wings. And she was telling us that that pink color actually comes from the shrimp that they eat. So I guess if they're not eating a lot of shrimp, or if it's different kind of shrimp, it changes their color, which I thought was fascinating. Another fun fact here, she says that these flamingos, they're known for standing on one leg, right? But that's actually when they're sleeping. And that's because that water is so darn cold. So they basically change legs so they aren't super cold. So one leg is cold and then they like switch it up. Not sure exactly how they do that, but yeah, these are smart birds. Emma out of Spain has a really heartwarming story. So it looks like she's at some sort of fair or maybe farmer's market. Like there's local artisans selling things, right? This is in Fuerteventura, Spain. And she interviews a Bosnian refugee who has a stand and just learns all about her story. It's very interesting. If you take just a couple extra seconds to talk to someone, to ask that question that's kind of on the tip of your tongue, but, you don't know if that person's going to be receptive, to talk to you or whatever. It's amazing how you can learn so much more about a situation. And I just have this gut feeling that Emma probably just, was just being her happy self, right? And was just inquisitive and came across this beautiful story of how this family, including this woman at this booth, how she and her family rebuilt their life after escaping war. And it's just this beautiful, inspiring story, how this woman was struggling with PTSD. And she found that sewing calmed her down. Not only that, but it stimulated her creativity. And instead, I guess, of just keeping this all to herself, she decided to start selling these. And her designs are really beautiful, very colorful. And she does a lot of things on clothing themselves, but then also bags and other things at her booth. And, this is just us reconnecting with one another. And like I said, this can happen in so many different ways. Today, I was getting my girls, we went through Starbucks, which I know, Starbucks, right? But it was close and whatever. We wanted some coffee. So we were going through the drive-thru, and I really love that the person at the window actually took the initiative, and we were waiting on our coffee to arrive, and she was just hanging out in the window, and she's like, "Hey, so what are you guys doing today?" And she doesn't know me. I could have completely shut her down, which of course I would never do, but someone else might have. And I was like, "Oh, we were just at the beach." And, we took my daughters, and they have a friend that's spending the night tonight. And so we took them to the beach today, and we were just chit-chatting, waiting for coffee. And I learned all about her day and what she was doing. And so this is just us reconnecting with each other. And it can happen in so many different ways. And if you are a field messenger, even if you're not, just learning more about people and what they're going through, it just makes life so much more interesting. So Emma, thank you for that reminder. All right, Tom out of Canada. I appreciate Tom's report. He does a little bit of an investigative report. And I love this. The production team called it Something's Fishy, because that's exactly what was going on. So Tom got this fish. He was going after yellowfin tuna. So he went to the store, and, we pick up stuff at the store and it's got labels on it. And sometimes, we don't look any further. We're like, this is at the grocery store. I'm sure it's fine. But what Tom found when he looked a little closer, he found that the color of the tuna was a little bit off. He investigated some of those labels. He was going for fresh fish that was local. And that's not what he found at all. In fact, he found that this fish that he picked up was farmed fish, and it actually came all the way from Vietnam. So again, a little bit of investigative work, just, Googling, if you don't like Google, whatever search engine, but, looking for information online. I say question everything, right? Because just because someone's got a label on something really doesn't mean anything. That's for people that don't want to, take a step further and really look into this, because labels are extremely misleading. And Tom proves that with his story. And we have Monica out of Romania, who does a lovely story. She visited this clock museum. She says it's a one-of-a-kind attraction in Romania. And I love Monica's stories because I feel like I know so much more about Romania after watching her stories. I knew nothing about Romania prior to this, but she shows us all of these fun and interesting locations and various museums. And this was a beautiful one too. Showed us all these different types of clocks, including an astronomical clock, which was very interesting. Also little super tiny clocks. Just a really fun report. So here are some of the stories that the news team and I worked on for you guys this week. We are kicking things off in Japan. So Japan is making a major shift in how it handles child custody after divorce, moving away from its long-standing one-parent system toward allowing joint custody. And this is starting April 1st, so it's already in effect. For years, one parent, which was usually the mother, received full rights while the other often lost contact with their child, affecting up to a third of kids with divorced parents. Now, the new rules give courts the option to grant shared custody, aiming to keep both parents involved.
So what does this joint custody actually look like? Major decisions like where the child lives, what schools they go to, or medical treatments will need both parents' consent. Smaller decisions like what the child will eat or after-school activities can be decided by the primary caregiver. For urgent situations such as escaping abuse or emergency medical care, a single parent can also act alone. This law will also allow parents who are already divorced to go from sole to joint custody. Again, depending on what is best for the child. However, courts are not allowed to grant joint custody if there's any suspicion of abuse, and not just physical, also emotional, financial, and there will also be a stronger system to enforce child support.
Still, there are some concerns, such as the risks in cases involving domestic violence or whether Japan's legal and support systems are ready to handle co-parenting. So they're obviously going to have some stuff to work through there. Well, Congress in the U.S. is changing how the military draft system works by automatically registering eligible men instead of relying on them to sign up on their own.
American men are, for the first time, set to be automatically registered for the military draft. Congress approved the change in the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, signed into law by President Donald Trump. Supporters of the plan say that shifts responsibility from individuals to the government and would reduce administrative costs. But critics are worried that the use of men's federal data is a violation of privacy and signals a shift towards more military conflicts. The U.S. has not had a draft since 1973, during the Vietnam War, and any future draft would require approval from Congress and the President. If a draft were authorized, a random lottery would be held to decide the order in which people are called to serve. Women are not required to register, though they can voluntarily serve in the military.
The move comes as registration rates have been slipping, with many missing that requirement and risking penalties like losing access to federal aid or jobs. While this does not mean the draft in the U.S. is being reinstated, it does shift responsibility to the government to keep the system updated, though the timing, amid rising global tensions, is drawing increased public attention as well as concern. The debate over transgender inclusion in UK youth groups is intensifying after Girl Guiding announced that transgender girls and women must leave their program by September 2026, following a Supreme Court ruling defining sex as biological in certain legal contexts.
This row at Girl Guiding has been going on for 8 or 9 years now, from when guide leaders first said, this is meant to be a girls' organisation, there shouldn't be any boys here. And of course, Girl Guiding as a charity is dedicated to providing activities for girls, but they decided that some boys could be girls. So what this is now going to settle once and for all is that Girl Guiding is indeed an organisation for girls. If you want to be in mixed company, go and join the Scouts or do something else.
Supporters say the move protects single-sex spaces for girls, while critics argue it risks excluding vulnerable young people and harming their well-being. The decision reflects a broader national shift as more UK organizations adjust policies in response to this ruling, keeping the tension between legal definitions and inclusion front and center. A new report has raised alarms in France, finding that nearly half the population is consuming unsafe levels of cadmium, a toxic heavy metal linked to cancer that builds up in the body over time. Unlike what many might expect, the main source isn't pollution, but everyday foods like bread, pasta, and potatoes, contaminated through cadmium-heavy fertilizers used in agriculture.
So to understand why cadmium is such a problem, you need to understand how it messes with your biochemistry. First, it blocks key enzymes involved in energy production. It also blocks antioxidant defenses, and overall detoxification. Cadmium doesn't have a biological role, so it just takes the place of essential metals like zinc, magnesium, and iron in certain enzymes in your body. But when it replaces them, those enzymes stop working correctly.
The findings have intensified health warnings, frustrated organic farmers, and sparked calls for stricter regulations, while also highlighting a broader global issue, as significant portions of the world's farmland are contaminated with heavy metals. Your credit score in the U.S. or your credit report, well, they both play a major role in your financial life, influencing everything from loan approvals to job opportunities. So let's talk about this a bit.
A credit score is basically a number that tells institutions such as banks how creditworthy you are. For example, a bank will look at your credit score when deciding whether or not they approve a loan or when deciding how much interest they'll charge you. The better your credit score is, the more willing lenders will be to give you money, and the lower the interest rates they'll charge you will be. Credit scores aren't just used by banks though. They're used by lots of entities, from insurance companies to landlords. Credit scores are calculated based on information gathered from multiple sources, but mainly based on your credit report, which is a record of your credit history. The credit report contains information from lending institutions, collection agencies, and even the government. For example, if you've paid back previous loans on time, your credit report will reflect that. Based on this information, your credit score is calculated through an algorithm, which varies from country to country.
While the U.S. heavily relies on a single number, other countries take a broader approach, and understanding how these systems work can help you stay informed, catch issues early, and take control of your financial future. South Korea has launched a nationwide energy-saving campaign as of April 2026 to tackle rising fuel costs and growing supply concerns, especially amid tensions in the Middle East. With the country importing about 97% of its energy, officials are urging citizens and public institutions to cut usage through simple measures like reducing electricity and limiting heating and cooling.
South Korea calls for energy-saving campaign, including shorter showers and car curbs. It's a car curb? Well, it's a private sector vehicle curb, which is voluntary for now, but could be reviewed if the energy alert level increased. What does that mean? They want less people driving private passenger cars. They want public institutions would cut back on their use of passenger cars. So what does this mean? Well, we know part of the plan is that they don't even want you having a privately owned vehicle. We've seen videos from the World Economic Forum saying the future when, you own nothing and you'll be happy because there's public transit to take you everywhere. But how do you get people to, abandon their privately owned vehicles? Well, you make it so that they either can't afford to drive or are not allowed to drive.
See, this is why you always have to question everything. Now, while the government is also taking emergency steps to stabilize supply, such as capping fuel prices and restarting nuclear reactors, the public response has been mixed, with some supporting the effort and others frustrated by the burden placed on everyday people. India has become a global hub for textile waste, right? We were talking about that earlier. Why aren't we making clothes the old-fashioned way and, getting rid of all this fast fashion stuff? And India is a hotspot for this. It processes millions of tons of discarded clothing from both domestic use and international imports, with more than 70% being reused or recycled. While this system supports a growing circular economy and creates jobs, especially in large sorting hubs, it also exposes workers to health risks from dust, microfibers, and chemicals. New initiatives, though, like advanced textile recovery centers, are working to make the process safer and more sustainable.
There are clothes with tags and clothes without. The ones with tags are set aside for reuse. Those without tags but still with good quality fabric and color that probably haven't been used much are also reused. The upcycle pile is for denim, track pants, shirts, etc. that can be turned into another product. Downcycling is for a dress that maybe has a stain or something with a tear. Those items are separated for downcycling.
Still, the scale of fast fashion means our consumer habits still play a major role in easing the pressure on all of these systems. Asia's exotic pet trade has exploded into a multi-billion-dollar industry driven by rising incomes, social media influence, and the appeal of owning rare animals like slow lorises and otters. While demand continues to grow across legal and illegal markets, it comes with serious consequences, including animal suffering, high mortality rates, ecological disruption, and public health risks.
He was fined $8,000 for keeping banned reptiles in Singapore. 2 years later, he moved overseas just to keep them. Randall Harkness began collecting reptiles in 2017.
As it grows up, it starts to trust you, and now it just like sits on my shoulder here without like moving around much. That's like the little things in life that I kind of appreciate when it comes to reptile pet keeping lah.
But Randall thinks it's no longer worth the risk to keep exotic pets in Singapore, where penalties are stiff. And yet, the demand hasn't disappeared. It's moved online.
Experts warn that without stronger enforcement and greater awareness, the true cost of this trend will keep falling on wildlife and ecosystems. A new study shows nearly 3 million seniors have lost Medicare Advantage coverage in the U.S. in 2026 as insurers pull out of unprofitable markets, leaving many, especially in rural areas, scrambling for alternatives. The program's rapid growth over the past decade has slowed as rising healthcare costs, stagnant government reimbursements, and tighter regulations push major insurers to cut plans or exit altogether.
In the past, the name of the game has been just get anyone and everyone to enroll, and they tried to expand. And now they're looking at the data of some of these markets, and they're saying we are losing money on these markets. Now, we actually saw this starting to happen last year. We saw many plans being terminated because of this. And so, again, they're identifying these markets that are just simply not profitable for them, and they're pulling out of those markets or at least reducing their exposure in those markets.
While some seniors have shifted back to traditional Medicare, many face higher out-of-pocket costs and gaps in supplemental benefits, raising broader concerns about the long-term stability of a system tied closely to private insurance profits. So this is normally the time where we would play some sound bites from Kimberly Gogan, who is the head of the Global Intelligence Agency, and she gives us an update on what's happening, right, on our planet and what the crazy deep state is up to and where we stand in tearing down this insane matrix that so many of us are here to help take down. So Kim did not release a video report this week. I would encourage you guys to all go back, and you could either listen to the rundown episode from last week, or by now, I believe her GIA report is available on YouTube and Rumble. It's, I believe, close to 2 hours long, her report. I recommend you go back and you listen to that again because there was so much information. I could only include a handful of sound bites in last week's rundown episode. There were other things that she talked about that I couldn't fit in. So go back, watch that again, listen to that again, because there were some really important things in that report. And sometimes you just got to take this in a couple times. It's just so much of this stuff. It's new information. It's rewriting of history. It's like, so many things coming at us at once. So if you ever get into that situation where you're like, I wish Kim released a report, go back and listen, because you always find different things when you listen 2 times, 3 times, whatever your schedule allows for. She did put out a message, I think it was yesterday. So on May 1st, she put out a message, just a text message. She put it out on Telegram, so I'll go ahead and read that for you now. Just a quick heads up, I made some slight modifications. As you guys know, Kim is really busy and, she's trying to get us the information as quickly as she can. And the sentence structure was a little off. Let's just put it that way. But I think I got the gist. So here's what she said. Hi, everyone. We are on radio silence until this weekend or at the latest Tuesday for ongoing operations. Happy May Day for those of you celebrating and enjoying a long weekend. We have so much to report, and if the next few days go as expected, we'll have a very good week. Stay safe and enjoy the spring or fall weather. I don't know about you, that sounds good to me. I am looking forward to a very positive report this coming week. All right, guys, thanks for checking out the rundown today. I appreciate you guys. Check out our website if you haven't already. You can learn more about us there, unitednetwork.earth. Consider becoming a member. That gives you instant on-demand access to all of the content we've released, including all of our news updates. We've got interviews that talk about the new Earth and some exciting things that are coming up. We have all of Kim's reports, all the Global Intelligence Agency reports that she's done, and all things restoration. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.